You know that feeling when you pop something into an online translator and what comes out is just completely bizarre? Well, it turns out those weird mistakes aren't just random glitches. They actually point to a huge blind spot in our digital world, a blind spot that risks erasing entire cultures, one word at a time. Today, we're going to dive into some incredible research that uncovers this hidden bias and reveals a surprisingly powerful, human-centered way to fix it.
Okay, so check this out. This is a perfect example. A researcher typed a pretty common Arabic phrase into Google Translate, and this is what it spit out. The fasting person begins his breakfast by eating lions. Lions! The actual phrase was talking about breaking a fast with water and dates. So how on earth do you get from dates to lions? Well, this isn't just some hilarious error. It's a huge clue that points to a much deeper problem. So what's really going on with that whole dates to lions mix-up? It's a symptom of something that linguists call the lexical gap. And it's a massive challenge when we try to teach machines how to understand the beautifully complex, kind of messy thing that is human language.
So what exactly is a lexical gap? Put simply, it's when a word for a specific concept is totally normal in one language, but there's just no single direct word for it in another. The meaning is there, you can describe it, but that one perfect word just doesn't exist. This forces translators, whether they're human or AI, to kind of guess or explain it the long way or, well, as we just saw, sometimes get it completely and totally wrong.
And this happens all the time with concepts you would absolutely think are universal. This table shows it perfectly. Just look, English doesn't have a single word for that specific savory taste the Japanese call umami, or that perfect firm-to-the-bite pasta texture that Italians call al dente. These aren't obscure ideas, right? But they show that every single language carves up the world in its own unique way. Now, the problem gets way, way bigger when we look at how our digital tools are actually built. A lot of them are stuck inside this kind of English filter bubble, and because of that, they're systematically stripping the nuance and culture right out of other languages. Here's the key. For the longest time, the go-to method for building a translation tool was to use English as a middleman. So to get from Japanese to Swahili, the tool would translate from Japanese to English and then from English to Swahili. But what happens to a concept that exists in both Japanese and Swahili, but not in English? It just gets lost in translation, vanishes. For example, the Arabic word hala specifically means your mother's sister. But through the English filter, it just becomes the generic word aunt. And that precise family relationship, that piece of culture, is just gone. So this is where the research gets really, really clever. To get around this English bias, a team of researchers came up with this brilliant, human-powered way to map these language gaps directly. No middleman needed.
And their method is beautifully simple. It's basically a three-step process. First, they automatically generate lists of words and definitions for two languages, focusing on a specific topic, like food. Then, and this is the secret sauce, they use crowdsourcing. They ask native speakers to look at both lists side by side and decide, is there a direct match, or is this a lexical gap? And finally, they have other native speakers and experts double-check the results for accuracy. It's so smart because it relies on the best source of knowledge there is, the actual people who speak the languages every day.
And this is the actual tool they built to do it. It's called LingoGap. You can see how it works. A person gets a word and its definition, in this case, banana, in English, and then they're shown a list of possible words in Arabic. They can pick a match, say there's no match at all, or even add a new word if the right one's missing. It's a simple little task that when you do it thousands of times, starts to build an incredibly rich map of a language's unique soul.
Okay, so let's get to the good stuff, the results. Does this whole thing actually work? Well, the researchers ran two big case studies, and they picked a fantastic, culturally rich topic to test it on: food. First up, they compared English and Arabic. Now, you'd think that with how connected our food cultures are globally, there'd be a ton of overlap in our words, right? This diagram here is going to show us just how much they have in common. So, what does the data say? Get this, the overlap was only 46.8%, less than half. That is just a stunningly low number. It shows just how differently these two cultures talk about and think about food. Shaped by everything from history to religious practices, it means more than half of their food words are for concepts that are unique to each language. Now, as wild as that is, their second case study might be even more surprising. This time, they compared Standard Indonesian, the national language, with Banjaris, which is a regional language spoken in the same country, just on a different island. You'd think they would be way, way closer, right? Nope, it's even lower, just a 40.9% overlap. This is huge. It proves that this incredible linguistic diversity doesn't just happen between faraway cultures. It happens right inside the borders of a single country. Different local foods and histories created two totally distinct ways of talking about the world. So we've seen that these massive, surprising language gaps are everywhere. And this human-powered method is clearly great at finding them. But let's be honest, it sounds like a lot of work. Which brings us to the elephant in the room in the age of AI. Can't we just get a machine to do this better and faster? So they put it to the test. The researchers basically said, all right, AI, their turn. They gave the exact same task, finding all these lexical gaps, to some of the world's most powerful large language models. So the big question is, has the tech finally caught up to the subtleties of human culture? The answer was a massive, resounding no. I mean, just look at this chart. It tells the whole story. The very best AI, GPT-4o, was only right about 27% of the time. And the human crowdsourcing method, an incredible 83.9% accuracy. It's not even a competition. The humans were nearly 3 times better at this. So why was the AI so bad at this? Well, it pretty much failed in 3 major ways. Sometimes the models would just hallucinate. They literally just make up a word that sounded plausible but didn't exist. Other times, they'd give a super generic answer, like translating a very specific type of root vegetable as just tuber. But the biggest failure was that they had 0 real cultural context. They just couldn't understand why a word might be missing. And all of this brings us to the big picture, the real so what of all this. Because this research is about so much more than just fixing some funny translation mistakes. It's really about making sure our digital future is as rich and diverse as our human world. So when you boil it all down, what's the big takeaway? Well, mapping these gaps is a powerful way to preserve cultural identity. It's about building tech that actually understands and respects the thousands of different ways we all see the world. It gives us a roadmap for documenting our planet's amazing linguistic diversity before it disappears. And most of all, it's a powerful reminder that even in the age of AI, there is still no substitute for real human knowledge. Ultimately, all of this leaves us with a really profound question to think about. Our language isn't just data. It's the carrier of our culture, our history, our identity. It's what makes us us. So if the technology we're building can't even understand our words in all their unique, beautiful diversity, can it ever truly understand us?